The distressing story of a dictator who steals treasure, who claims to have located some of the wealth that was lost during World War II in the Philippines, only to have it taken away by the avaricious dictator Ferdinand Marcos of the Philippines at the time. Marcos and his men carried out a house invasion on the hunter, during which they made off with gold bars, a Buddha statue made of pure gold, and even the hunter's children's piggy bank. After being beaten and tormented, the treasure hunter continued to refuse to reveal the location of the hidden wealth. Imelda eventually revealed that a large percentage of Marcos's fortune came from Yamashita's gold after the couple escaped to Hawaii in 1986. Marcos and his wife Imelda fled to Hawaii at the same time, and this was just the beginning of the problem for this dictator who steals treasure. In a following legal battle, the estate of the treasure hunter and the investors were granted $22 billion, which confirmed that Marcos was definitely responsible for stealing the treasure. Treasure hunters continue to put their lives in danger in the modern era in the hope of finding any of the elusive remaining lost gold from World War II. However, when he returned to the Philippines with the treasure in his possession, the avaricious tyrant Ferdinand Marcos stole it from him. The residence of the treasure seeker was broken into by Marcos and his men, who made off with gold bars, a statue of Buddha made of pure gold, and even the treasure hunter's children's piggy banks. Later on, the treasure seeker was beaten and tortured, but he continued to refuse to give the whereabouts of the remaining riches. Imelda Marcos, who was married to Ferdinand Marcos, and Marcos both escaped to Hawaii in 1986. Years later, Imelda revealed that a significant portion of Marcos's riches was built on Yamashita's gold. In the subsequent court struggle, a jury decided that Marcos had in fact stolen the treasure and awarded the treasure hunter's estate and his investors a total of $22 billion. Treasure hunters continue to put their lives in danger every day in the hope of finding any remaining gold looted during World War II. During World War II, Yamashita is said to have stolen gold, diamonds, and historical artifacts from 12 different countries located in East and Southeast Asia. He then supposedly buried these valuables in a number of secret places throughout the Philippines. But Yamashita never got the opportunity to collect his loot because in 1946, the Americans found him guilty of war crimes and sentenced him to death by hanging. A locksmith named Rogelio Rojas made the discovery in 1971 of one of Yamashita's hidden hoards. The hoard contained nearly a ton of gold in the form of gold bars as well as a Buddha statue. And as if finding a ton of gold wasn't enough, Rojas later found out that the head of the Buddha statue could be removed, and that the interior of the statue concealed handfuls of uncut diamonds. After hearing the tale, the dictator who governed the Philippines with an iron hand until 1986, Ferdinand Marcos, is said to have ordered Rojas to be kidnapped and tortured so that he would tell the whereabouts of his treasure so that he could steal it. It has been said that Marcos was successful in retrieving the majority of Yamashita's wealth, but no member of Marcos's family had ever addressed the charges in public until February 1992. Imelda Marcos, the widow of Ferdinand Marcos, is quoted as saying in a 1992 Associated Press article that her late husband had uncovered Japanese treasure after World War II, but had not declared its presence to tax authorities because the sum was so large that it would be embarrassing. It appears that the dictator concealed the gold hoard in a number of different locations, one of which was within the walls of his own residence. Imelda, who is 91 years old today, continues to refuse to divulge any information on the possible storage locations of the remaining gold. During the day, Rogelio Rojas toiled away as a lowly locksmith in the city of Baguio, which is located a few hours north of Manila. Treasure hunting was a hobby of his that he pursued in his leisure time. In the decades that followed World War II, it was a popular sport that at one point came dangerously close to becoming a national obsession in a country where Japanese soldiers were accused of robbing and hiding huge sums of gold and other treasures during their control of the Philippines. During this period, the Philippines was under Japanese occupation. It is said that General Tomoyuki Yamashita and his soldiers hid tons of gold and other looted riches in underground caverns and tunnels in the northern part of the country, with the aim of recovering all of it after the war. This is the basis for a local legend. However, Japan did finally surrender, and after being captured by U.S. forces, Yamashita was tried for war crimes and sentenced to death. He was put to death in 1946, taking the mystery of the location of the gold heist with him to the grave with him. Years later, when Rogelio Rojas was still a youngster, he encountered a Japanese guy who told him that his father had fought as a soldier under Yamashita and that his father had once drawn him a map indicating the buried riches. The man also informed Rogelio that his father had once given him the map. Another man he encountered had worked as an interpreter for Yamashita, and he claimed that he had once been led to hidden tunnels in Baguio, where he had seen crates of gold and silver, along with a golden statue of Buddha. This man had worked for Yamashita. In 1970, Mr. Rojas, who was 27 years old at the time, organized a team of treasure hunters to unearth the gold and began digging day and night in an abandoned mine shaft below the Baguio hospital. They were successful in their mission. It took them 7 months to break into a network of underground tunnels, where they discovered a human skeleton dressed in a Japanese army uniform, along with bayonets, rifles, and other weapons. They found one tunnel that was approximately 1.8 meters high and 9 meters long that was entirely stuffed with crates. When Mr. Rojas opened the first box, he discovered 24 individual gold bars. After that, Mr. Rojas discovered a Buddha statue that was golden in color and stood around 90 centimeters tall in a concrete vault that was located beneath the floor of the tunnel. According to his calculations, it had to weigh at least 1 ton. It took 10 people to transport the statue and the gold bars to Mr. Rojas's house when he discovered that the head of the Buddha could be detached. From within, he extracted handfuls of rough diamonds and put them on display. Mr. Rojas began the process of selling the golden Buddha, as well as some of the gold bars, before he could go back into the tunnels and acquire the rest of the hidden treasure. He talked with 3 possible purchasers. They all agreed that the statue was made of 22-karat gold after one of them had it appraised. Another buyer, Joe Oihara, came to an agreement with Mr. Rojas to place a deposit on the gold statue equal to 1 million pesos, which would be around $2 million in 2022 currency. But a crew of 8 armed thugs dressed in military clothes showed up a few days later. They were there. Without having first obtained a valid search warrant, the men broke into the home of the Rojas family and stole everything within, including the gold Buddha, the diamonds, the 17 remaining gold bars, the samurai swords, and the coin collection. Even the piggy bank that the Rojas children kept their savings in was taken, and members of the family were tortured. It found out that Oihara had been staying at the home of Josefa Marcos, the mother of Ferdinand Marcos, the tyrant who proclaimed martial law the next year in the Philippines. Marcos was the president of the Philippines at the time. After hearing about the gold from Oihara, Marcos himself issued the order to conduct the search and seizure operation at Rojas's residence. Judge Pio Marcos, the president's uncle, and the one who had previously granted Mr. Rojas a permit to dig for the wealth, forewarned him that he was now in danger and that he was likely to be killed because of it. The Rojas family, led by Mr. Rojas, left the town and went into hiding. Interesting, right? Well, subscribe now for more of these thrilling stories and turn on post notification to know when there is a next post. However, a few months later, he was apprehended and taken into custody. He was also subjected to cigarette burns, electric shocks while he was being tortured. Mr. Rojas was warned that he would never see his family again if he did not sign an affidavit clearing President Marcos of any responsibility in the theft of the golden Buddha. He was also threatened with death if he did not sign the document. He was coerced into signing a different affidavit in which he denied ever reporting a theft having occurred in his residence. The locksmith was eventually let free, but when he arrived at the political rally where he was scheduled to speak, hand grenades were tossed onto the stage where he was supposed to be sitting. A number of people were murdered or severely injured in the incident. Mr. Rojas went into hiding for an additional year, but when he tried to return to his house in Baguio for the second time, he was apprehended and sentenced to 2 years in prison for illegal possession of a pistol. Research team finally discovers tunnel that leads to treasure. Click on the next video now to find out what they found in the tunnel. Research team has discovered treasure maps and the danger to come. Could these maps finally be the answer to all the unanswered questions about this treasure? Bingo Minerva, the lead researcher, had a meeting with Chuck McDougall, who talks about his time spent in the Philippines and refers them to Robert Curtis, a treasure hunter who has maps relating to the missing riches. McDougall and Curtis commenced their search in Fort Santiago after receiving permission to do so from President Aquino. During their time there, they discover marble and flecks of gold. Nevertheless, their excavation is suddenly halted, which has led to rumors that political influence was involved. In addition, the team uncovered genuine treasure maps and danger was revealed, which show that the wealth is quite valuable. In spite of the obstacle, they have indicated that they are willing to go back to the Philippines in order to have the artifacts examined by experts. Bingo Minerva, the head researcher, has a meeting with Chuck McDougall, a guy who is connected to Robert Curtis and who headed a treasure expedition in the Philippines in 1988. The expedition was looking for a lost fortune. McDougall recounts his time spent in the Philippines, during which he was a witness to the widespread corruption that existed under Ferdinand Marcos's administration. In the end, McDougall discovered the name of Robert Curtis, who claimed to have maps relating to the missing riches. They were able to secure a permit from President Aquino and get started looking for gold at Fort Santiago, thanks to McDougall's contacts and Curtis's expertise. It is not apparent, however, whether or not they were successful in their search for riches during their journey. The excavation team discusses their findings at Fort Santiago, where they found marble and gold flakes at the 40-meter level. The finds were made at the same level. However, they were taken by surprise when the president issued the order to halt the excavation, which led to speculations that important senators were behind the action so that they could claim the wealth for themselves. In reality, the president had given the unexpected order to stop the excavation. The group also reveals that they were successful in collecting authentic treasure maps from Marcos's office, which strengthens the believability of their inquiry because it demonstrates that they have been paying attention to detail. The potential value of the treasure is astounding, as seen by these maps, and one place is thought to have treasure worth $5 billion in US money. The group was unable to travel back to the Philippines and reclaim any of the wealth that was there, despite the fact that they had the opportunity to do so. It is stated that if one follows the directions on the map, they will be able to locate buried Nazi riches that are worth millions of dollars and that were stolen from a bank by Hitler's troops. It is one of the hundreds of documents from World War that were once secret, but have now been declassified and made available to the general public. The map that was said to contain clues to a never-found treasure was kept under wraps for a significant amount of time in the Netherlands National Archives. It is hypothesized that the assets that were stolen from the bank in the city of Arnhem were, among other things, watches, gems, and jewelry. It has been reported by the NL Times that it is thought that the map identifies the precise site in Gelderland where the stolen goods were hidden. It would appear that the treasure is buried somewhere in the vicinity of Omeren and Linden, both of which are located in the Netherlands. According to a statement that was given by Annette Walkens of the National Archives, which was televised in the Netherlands, there was an explosion at a branch of the Rotterdamsche Bank on the Velperweg during the defense of Arnhem. This information was provided by Annette Walkens. It was observed at the scene of the crime that German soldiers were slipping items into their coats. It is a widely held opinion that the riches was initially hidden in munitions boxes before being buried in Omeren. This theory has gained significant traction in recent years. There is a possibility that treasure hunters or the Nazis themselves tracked down the stolen items days or weeks after they conducted the crime and recovered them. The Dutch authorities tried to find it by bringing a Nazi officer back to the Netherlands, but their efforts were unsuccessful, and the items were never located. The documents also offer specifics on the that took place in concentration camps, in addition to minutes from meetings amongst cabinet ministers. According to a statement released by the National Archives, the archive contains harrowing stories of humiliation and revenge against this group of illicit Dutch people. The leg irons that were used to bind prisoners together, sometimes for weeks at a time, are visible proof of the frequently brutal conditions that existed in these post-war institutions. In addition to this, they stated, there are files about the resistance against the Japanese occupation, about conscientious objectors and deserters, and about a conspiracy against Captain Westerling. During the Battle of Arnhem in the Netherlands in 1944, German soldiers are said to have buried a haul of items that they had seized. The treasure map purports to illustrate where these valuables are buried. It asserts that the objects, which may include jewelry, watches, and diamonds, were buried close to the community of Omeren, which is located in the middle of the Gelderland region of the Netherlands. Along with hundreds of other documents pertaining to World War II, the map, which had been kept concealed for many years in the National Archives of the Netherlands, has recently been made available to the general public. According to the NL Times, despite the fact that a great number of searches have been carried out over the course of the years, in an effort to identify the hall's location, nothing has been found. On the other hand, it's possible that treasure hunters came across it first. It's also possible that random bystanders found it and didn't report it, or that Nazi scavengers found it before the war was done and didn't report it. Both of these scenarios are possible. During the heist at the bank, it was said that one specialist told a local television that German soldiers put loot in their coats. These papers also contain documentation from a committee that reviewed allegations of torture carried out at Dutch prison facilities geared towards individuals accused of collaborating with the enemy. The document contains harrowing descriptions of acts of torture, humiliation, and retribution that were carried out against a group of illicit Dutch people. During the decades that followed World War II, it was a popular pastime that, at one point, came perilously near to becoming a national obsession in a country where Japanese soldiers were accused of looting and hiding enormous sums of gold and other treasures during their control of the Philippines. During that time, the Philippines was under Japanese occupation. The Philippines were ruled by Japan during this time period, hence they were under their dominion. It is reported that General Tomoyuki Yamashita and his forces stored tons of gold and other seized valuables in underground caverns and tunnels in the northern section of the country, with the intention of retrieving all of it after the war was over. This is the premise around which a local tale is built. However, Japan did finally surrender, and after being captured by U.S. forces, Yamashita was tried for war crimes and sentenced to death. He was put to death in 1946. Taking the mystery of the location of the gold heist with him to the grave with him. Subscribe now for more thrilling discoveries, and got that notification bell to be the first to know when the next exciting story is up. Years later, when Rogelio Rojas was still a youngster, he encountered a Japanese guy who told him that his father had fought as a soldier under Yamashita, and that his father had once drawn him a map indicating the buried riches. The man also informed Rogelio that his father had once given him the map. Treasure hunters have been known to let their imaginations run wild whenever they hear stories of buried Nazi loot. This is not the first time that this has happened. The year before, a disagreement erupted between those who were interested in finding Nazi gold and historians who claimed the fans were looking in the incorrect location. The Silesian Bridge Foundation had been conducting excavations on the grounds of a mansion built in the 18th century in the Polish village of Minkowski. They claimed that the grounds contained 200 million pounds worth of Nazi gold and other treasures that had been seized by Himmler's SS. The foundation's claim that the site was located in a war diary written by an SS officer near the conclusion of the Second World War was the spark that set off the controversy. However, historians who were invited to verify the diaries by the organization stated that their examination was not completely positive. New discovery leaves research teams stunned. Find out more now by clicking on the next video. Shocking revelation. Breech 6 is the key to finding treasure. The group gets updated with fresh information regarding the possible worth of Yamashita's gold and discusses a region of interest known as Breech 6 in this phase of the mission. They also think that Breech 6 is the key to finding treasure. The explorer John Casey and his crew are updated by the researcher Bingo Minerva with new information regarding the potential value of Yamashita's gold. Estimates suggest that there may still be treasure in the mountains that is worth tens of billions or maybe hundreds of billions of dollars. According to the findings of Bingo's inquiry, the treasure may not only consist of gold, but also of diamonds, gems, and coins that are hidden beneath burlap sacks and crates. Bingo's investigation found that these items may be found among the treasure. Another topic that is brought up for discussion among the squad is Breech 6, which was an area of interest that Colonel Corey and his crew had previously examined. The fact that there are scary stories about previous treasure hunters becoming ill or dying in the area adds to the dangers that are linked with going there. The group has come to the opinion that the best approach to evaluate the issue is they choose to conduct their excavation in the region that is immediately adjacent to the more significant anomaly. However, they experience difficulties as a result of the unstable soil, which ultimately results in the construction of a reinforced steel shaft for the purposes of safety. In the course of their exploration of the building, they came across a concrete slab that might or might not have been a component of a Japanese tunnel. During World War II, the Japanese made use of a cement mix that bore a striking resemblance to the formula that is applied in modern construction. Their level of excitement keeps rising as they get set to burst through the concrete and possibly find the long-lost treasure. They have been looking for it for a long time. After finishing all of the required steps, the party went into a corner and tried to get into the area where the treasure was hidden. They are really ecstatic because they believe that they may have found the entrance to a tunnel that had been concealed below the concrete covering. They have grounds for believing that they are coming closer to figuring out how to get into the mountain in order to retrieve the gold that was misplaced there. Lost Gold of World War II is an attempt to discover Yamashita's treasure 70 years after it was buried, based on trustworthy evidence from an eyewitness. While some mysteries have remained unsolved for a reason, such as a lack of credible information or an excessive reliance on tall tales, other mysteries have remained unanswered for a cause. The action takes place primarily on the island of Luzon in the Philippines, which serves as the backdrop for this exotic setting. During World War II, Japanese forces operating in Southeast Asia pillaged the region, stealing gold, ancient artifacts, and other valuables. After the United States prevented General Yamashita from returning to Japan in 1945, he purportedly buried all of the treasure in the Philippines after being prevented from returning to Japan. Following the conclusion of the war, he was put on trial in court and promptly executed, taking his long-hidden secret with him to the grave. After waiting for 7 decades, 2 treasure seekers have formed a partnership in order to investigate the alleged location of 175 treasure sites across the Philippines. Together with a group of 4 other investigators, Peter Struzzieri, who has a combined experience of 50 years in the treasure hunting industry, and John Casey serve as team leaders for this project. Their mission is to uncover the truth. Grandpa has consented to aid this party of Americans, who are being followed by a video team, despite the fact that he is somewhat hazy on everything he truly knows and that he was compelled to help the Japanese when he was a child. Lost Gold is not as simple as just following urban legends into the woods. There is more to it than that. 5 individuals make up the crew that is on the hunt for buried treasure: heavy equipment operators Brad Carr and Jeremy McMillian, a team physician by the name of Manny Paez, and an expert in symbols and codes by the name of Martin Flagg. In order to ensure the safety of the treasure vaults, General Yamashita set off a series of dynamite explosions. This introduces an additional element of danger into the equation. As a direct consequence of this, a great number of engineers and prisoners of war lost their lives in the process. After the treasure had been hidden, General Yamashita put it under a mountain in order to cover up practically all of the evidence. He did this so that no one would ever, most likely because to the poison that the Japanese left behind for the other hunters. What can we say but that there are several layers of suspense? Throughout the course of the show, a number of strange symbols are discovered carved into a variety of rocks. It is supposed that these emblems were left behind for the Golden Lily, a secret establishment of Japanese nobility that may have initially claimed the jewels for themselves. Using the equipment that is available, the group makes the discovery that there may be a cyanide canister that has been broken at the bottom of the 25-foot pit. They do this by climbing into their big machinery and operating it in order to expel any potentially contaminated gas. After Yamashita and his soldiers had left, the mountains had transformed, and for the past 80 years, there have been only a few hints left behind by the people who hid the treasure in the highlands. One of them has a pyramidal structure and hard imprints on the hand, which are both things that cannot be formed by nature and can only be made by humans. The pyramidal structure may be able to direct the team to the tunnels that Yamashita's men constructed. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on post notification for more interesting findings about this treasure. Breech 6 is the product of the labor put in by those who excavated for this treasure in the past. Up until the current day, a number of teams have been searching for gold and artifacts. Breach the 6th of May provide leads and clues, but it also may provide risks because some of the Yamashita army may have abandoned their traps. A shard of the shattered glass bottle may be seen on the screen of one of the team's cameras in Breach 6. It is assumed to be a bottle of cyanide due to the fact that Japanese soldiers are believed to have left it for Allied forces to use as poison as they searched for gold. Is this bottle supposed to represent one of the many booby traps that would eventually lead the team to the treasure? Imelda Marcos asserted, without providing any evidence to support her assertion, in 1992, that the majority of Ferdinand Marcos's fortune came from Yamashita's gold holdings. The search for treasure places is being carried out by a large number of individuals and groups from both the Philippines and other countries. It has been alleged that treasure hunters have been responsible for a number of accidental fatalities, injuries, and financial losses. Research team finally makes breakthrough in treasure discovery. Click on the next video to find out more now.